McGahey, welcome.
Good morning. No, actually, I guess it's good afternoon now.
Yeah, we're running into, well, we had a few technical glitches there, so
Yeah.
running behind time.
No worries at all. As they said, my name is Bob McGahey. I work at the Canadian Teachers Federation, which is an alliance of 16 organizations representing approximately 200,000 teachers across the country. I'm a teacher, and as such, I learned very early in my career not to speak about that which I do not know. I'm not here to talk to you about science. I've listened for the last 2 hours and I've heard varying viewpoints, and I certainly don't envy you your task of trying to wade through that science to determine what is appropriate science. What I do know is that we don't know. And perhaps we don't even know what we don't know. And that can be scary. So what we did as teachers, as a teachers organization, is that we asked our teachers what they knew about Wi-Fi, what they knew about how it was used in the schools, and what they knew about any potential health risks. And I'm presenting to you today some of the results of that survey. I've got a full copy of the results that we did. I'm not presenting it as a survey that can be generalized to the population. We did an online survey. We don't know if we have a representative sample, but we do know that we have a sample of over 3,800 respondents from across the country. It's important for our recommendations to know, that almost 9 in 10 teachers told us that they either had wired access or both wired and wireless access to the internet in their schools. We're not here to tell you that teachers are opposed to having internet access or using Wi-Fi as an educational tool. Matter of fact, most of the teachers told us that they wanted to use internet, and they do use internet in the schools, and they need access to internet in the schools. But they also told us, 75% of them told us that they could use a wired access instead of a wireless access. And even those that said that they could not use a wired access said that they could make use of a wireless access that could be turned on and off in their classroom. And so our first recommendation to you is that Safety Code 6 should have a recommendation somewhere, until we know for sure, a recommendation somewhere that Wi-Fi in schools be used prudently. There are many cases in schools where teachers wheel in classrooms of some sort of device, much like the devices you have on your table there, and they use them in their classroom. There's no need to have wireless access available all day, every day, in every classroom. That cart could come in with an access point that gets plugged in and turned on and used while it's being used in the class, and then turned off and wheeled out with the devices. We're not against the use of Wi-Fi. We're for the use of prudent use of Wi-Fi. We wanted to find out what teachers knew about any potential health hazards related to exposure to RF fields. This part of our survey proved very interesting, as it was clear that little or no effort has been made by schools or districts to inform teachers or parents about the use of Wi-Fi in the schools. The vast majority of teachers knew nothing about this. And the anecdotal responses we got to an open-end questions indicated that I didn't know this was an issue, but now I'm going to do some research. And they're going to go online and they're going to do some research and they're going to find whatever's online. They're quite frankly not going to find the peer-reviewed studies because they're not published online because the publishers are keeping them in their journals. They're going to find what's online. So again, they're not going to know what they don't know. And we need decisions made based on solid evidence. And I've heard this morning 2 presentations, as have you, from one scientist who said nothing to worry about and another one that said everything to worry about. So who do you believe? And that's up to you, I guess, in your solemn-esque task to try and figure out who do we believe. We're hearing anecdotally, though, about health problems related to Wi-Fi exposures that are not related to heating effects. For example, this email crossed my path yesterday, the day before. In 1993, a teacher from British Columbia was struck by lightning. Since then, he's experienced acute severe sensitivity to electromagnetic radiation, and he's physically moved himself to another community. He's doesn't have, as we've heard from many of the people we heard, he doesn't have in his home wireless technology, cell phones, all of that sort of microwaves. He avoids that. His school in 2011 decided, and I say he, I don't even know it was a he, because I'm just saying he, so installed 2 industrial Wi-Fi routers in his school. He went to his principal and asked, can you please not turn these on because I'm going to have an adverse effect of these. I'm not going to be able to work. They went through a process there. To make a long story short, in 2012, the principal sent an email, said they were turning them on. They turned them on in March of 2012. He said, and this were his words, his teaching that day had an acute onset of pain in his head and eyes, tightness in the chest, heart palpitations, weakness of the legs, pressure on the bridge of his nose. He described like a knife blade, high-pitched noise in his ears, disorientation and weakness. He booked off work that date and hasn't returned. The employer is currently fighting the claims of not offering any accommodation. I mentioned to his advocate that what you may want to do is suggest a low-powered router in the classroom as an alternative to having this, and the employer isn't interested in talking. And what they do is they waive safety code 6. We've had advocates go to school boards and say, can we please come up with a way, because we don't know, to mitigate and ensure the safety of the children in our care, and the employers waive safety code 6. Safety code 6, as you know, established thresholds based on exposure to an adult male, not to a child who has no choice but to be there. So our second recommendation and third recommendation are that safety code 6 exposure thresholds be based upon both thermal and biological effects, unless we can determine definitively that they're not there, and that the expert panel also recommend an education program regarding the relative safety of Wi-Fi exposure, and that appropriate resources be developed to educate the public regarding ways to avoid potential exposure risk to Wi-Fi access points and devices. So we're not asking to turn it all off. We're asking for people to be able to make a choice, for people to make an educated choice, and unfortunately, that falls in the hands of this expert panel to make those kinds of those sorts of recommendations. So thank you for your time this morning, and I'll be happy to take any questions if you have any questions. Ben?
Wi-Fi operates at roughly similar frequencies as cell phones. So would your recommendations also apply to use of cell phones in classrooms?
Cell phones are being used in classrooms across the country for both pedagogical reasons. It's the same sort of situation. If a teacher has a purpose, many school boards actually require that students turn off their cell phones when they come in, primarily because they're not being used for pedagogy. They're being used for other purposes. If they're being used for pedagogy, and there are many teachers who do that, they can do the same thing. They can turn on a wireless access point when they want to use them. Students can use their devices as they bring, and away you go. You turn it off when you don't need it. Any other? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.